Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Corey Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk building that's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's being 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
If you hunt with Corey Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
and you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BSing, no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record
I thought I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Should we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something?
Corey, it's been a long time.
It has. It seems like that's the case every year about this time.
Yeah, I knew you were out in the woods trying to starve yourself to death on some weight loss program. So in the interim, I had David Brinker and Bryce Bishop from Peaks on the podcast, but the editor said that David's audio is pretty much unusable. So the one that we thought we'd have for the audience to hear between this long gap of you and I getting together, they didn't get to hear it.
There's nothing more frustrating than spending hours getting ready for and doing a podcast and then realizing you forgot to hit record or the audio's not usable.
Yeah, I feel bad. I don't know what was going on David's end, but I could hear little bits and pieces like, I hope this works. And Joe, the editor, is like, Randy, I don't think this is going to work. But anyhow, the audience now has big stories from Corey. I feel like you've returned
stories
from a... What's that?
There'll be stories for sure.
Stories, huh?
Yeah.
If I was following the Elk 101 Instagram properly, Sam shot an elk, I believe, didn't he?
Yeah.
I didn't see anything with Donnie, but I've been out in the woods too, so maybe I missed Donnie's elk. No?
I can't say too much. I mean, we got to save a little bit of drama for when Destination Elk launches.
I didn't see your elk, but maybe you're saving that drama also?
Yeah.
How many pounds did you lose when you were out there? You guys went out there. None of the hunters got to bring any food.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Let's go back and start at the beginning of September and work our way up. Because I don't think we've done a podcast since late August, before we left.
I know. I've been in Oregon, Arizona, and Montana, and you've been, I don't know where. I think you're part of the Witness Protection Program. So.
This year it seems like it. It was an off September. I had to go in for an unplanned hernia surgery in August, and that set me back. That was, the doctor trying to be as kind as he could said, you just listen to your body. I'm not going to give you a time frame. Some people are ready to go running 2 days after surgery, and some people take 6 weeks, but you just listen to your body. Well, my body told me, yeah, you aren't packing elk quarters yet. So I got the all clear about September 5th from the surgeon. And he said, you know what? Yeah, it's still going to swell like crazy. It's still going to be painful and uncomfortable, but you aren't going to do any damage to the surgery. So that's all I needed to hear. And I even asked him, I said, if I have 120 pounds on my back, I'm on a side hill, I step over a blow down and I twist sideways and have to catch myself and fall down the hill, which is a pretty realistic situation when you're packing an elk in September. And he said, nope, you won't do any damage to the surgery. It's going to hurt. It's going to pull. You're going to, loosen up some scar tissue, but go do what you need to do. So I think it was 2 days later, I put it to the test and Isaac shot an incredible bull. We had it was early. I think it was September 6th or 7th. We got a bull bugling up above us, one down below us. Decided to go after the one up above us because it sounded bigger. And we got up to where we thought he was at and bugled, and he answered down from where we had started. So weren't sure if he'd come into the calls or if he was just moving, but we dropped down and realized this bull was a runner. And we chased him for probably 1.5 miles, 2 miles, as he was just on a beeline. And I just finally went quiet and quit calling and thought, maybe our calling is pushing him, but realized, nope, that wasn't it. He just kept going, and he'd bugle every 5 minutes or so and still be 1/2 mile ahead of us heading. We've got 2 north-facing, basically hillsides that he could bet on. And other than that, no, there's nowhere. So I said, he's going to one of those 2 places. So we picked the first one and got in there, slipped in quiet, and he bugled like 3 times from the top of this knob. And I said, he's slowing down at least. And so we started slipping in. And again, we hadn't called for probably 3/4 of a mile at this point. We're just slipping in, following him. And he heard us walking through the dry huckleberry brush and came running back bugling. And I stayed quiet, and he came on the skyline about 60 yards above us and just stood there for 3 or 4 minutes looking around. And when he did that, I watched, and when he turned his head, I just let out a cow call, and he turned and screamed a bugle. And I screamed a bugle right back at him, and he started raking. So I started raking, and he turned and started walking back the way he'd come on the skyline. I thought, he's either leaving or he's looking for an easy way to come in. And I just kept raking, and pretty soon I saw him turn and start down the hill, and I thought, oh, he's coming in. So I stepped over behind Isaac. I was about 4 feet behind him and saw the bull come down, and it stopped right in a shooting lane that I thought was a shooting lane, and he's at full draw and no shot. And I'm like, oh, what's going on here? You aren't going to pass this bull. Because he said, I want to shoot a good bull this year. And I thought, oh, please don't pass this bull. And the bull took about 2 more steps, and then he cow called, and the bull didn't stop. So then I started cow calling, and the bull stopped, and he shot, and we heard crashing and walked, and the shot, I think, was 35 yards, and the bull made it maybe 40 yards and piled up, and he pulled the head up out of the brush, and I thought, well, I'm glad he didn't pass it up. It was a beautiful 7x8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So had a split, I think, 3rd on one side, and had an extra coming off the 4th on the other side, and just an awesome bull. So I got to test out packing quarters on a freshly healed hernia surgery, and I packed 2 hind quarters in 2 trips. We made 2 trips, so I took a hind quarter each trip, and it hurt like crazy. It was tight and twisted, and I got back, and I thought, oh, I'm going to pay for this tomorrow. I woke up the next day, no pain, no swelling, and from that point on, I haven't had an issue. So I think I just needed to tear the scar tissue loose, and body said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're good to go. So it was a good warm-up.
Wow. Good for Isaac.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so then he went down and bought a second tag, and held out for a really big bull the rest of the month, and he had a chance. Backing up just a little bit, I had a chance to hunt with a really good friend of mine who is, I think, Bob's 71 or 72. He's a retired Marine. I think he was in the Marines for 30 or 35 years, and become really good friends with him, and he's never killed an elk with a bow. And so I said, this is going to be my mission this year, especially where I couldn't hunt. My tag didn't start until the 21st. So spent several days hunting with Bob, had some close calls, and then his son actually came in to hunt. And the one morning I hunted with him, we ended up calling in a giant, I'm terrible with scores because I just don't hunt big bulls, but he was 330 or 340.
Wow.
And called him into like 22 yards, and he stopped behind the only limb in the forest. And Bob's son was at full draw for a good minute and a half, and finally had to let down, and the bull saw the movement and knew something was up anyway. So ran off and never did get a shot. But we hunting about 4 miles away from there, maybe 5 miles away from there, 3-4 days later with Sam. So after Isaac had shot his bull, went out with Sam, called that same bull in, and Sam had an opportunity, but made a few mistakes and didn't capitalize. And I thought, what in the world? Why did that bull leave where he was? When we called him in the first time, he didn't have cows. Called him in for Sam, he had cows and he was protecting those cows. Like, he was very aggressive, came storming in, which caught us all kind of off guard. But I think it was a week later, and I had left for our destination elk hunt. Isaac had his second tag, went to a new area probably 3 miles away from that, called that same bull in and missed it at, I think, 40 yards, shot over it. So this bull, one of the reasons we know it's the same bull, aside from it being a big bull, is somebody had shot it in the shoulder right at the beginning of the season. So it had, it's getting along fine. It still had cows, chasing cows. This is 2 weeks later when Isaac missed it, but still has that. So it had been shot in the shoulder, been 22 yards from getting shot at full draw. Sam had an opportunity. Isaac missed it. So this bull has 9 lives. And to bring it full circle, I have a rifle tag for the same area that opens on October 15th. And I found the bull again yesterday on public land with a herd of cows screaming his head off at noon. So it's to be continued.
You only got 4 days to wait, Corey.
I know.
Wow.
So we did our destination elk hunt, which, as you alluded to, we had 4 teams again this year. And the twist this season was all 4 teams were sent out for 8 days and they couldn't bring any food with them. So anything you wanted to eat had to be caught or killed on the hunt. Basically had to live off the land for those 8 days. Without, I don't want to give away any spoilers about if teams were successful, if there was any success, who tapped, who whined, those sort of things.
Yeah.
I will just say,
who brought Snickers bars and stuff.
I will say I lost 13 pounds in 8 days.
It's not like you don't have 13 pounds to really lose,
and that's going into it. Like July timeframe, I was ready. I was working out like crazy. I weighed about 205 pounds and was in good shape at 205. Like, it wasn't, I didn't eat a whole bunch of food to survive off of my body fat. Then I got the hernia and couldn't work out and had to get surgery and couldn't work out. So I literally worked out maybe 6 times from mid-July until this hunt on September 21st. And not only did it, kind of knock me down physically, mentally, the mental part was I went into it a little nervous, whereas before I was like, I'll crush it, whatever I need to do, we're gonna work it out. And through that, I lost a little bit of the mental toughness, which I'll say after 3 days of not eating really anything substantial, you get into this. I mean, I was, day 2 was a tough day. Day 2 and day 3, I got a little bit of a boost mentally, but day 4, it like cleared up. Like, I was like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to crush this, whatever it takes. We're going to find a way to be successful here. And it's amazing what your body, what you're able to overcome mentally, I think, in those situations. And I'm not going to lie, without fuel going in, there's no energy. Like, you can't chase bulls 3,000 vertical and 10 miles a day. It's not going to happen. You might do it once, but that's all you got in the gas tank, and the body shuts down and says, we've got to hunker down here and survive.
Nap time.
So, yeah.
Let's go catch a trout and eat it over a fire.
Oh man, there's gonna be some.
How many grouse got shot?
I'll just say that a meal with 1 grouse and some shaggy mane mushrooms can completely change your whole outlook, your whole attitude.
See, I'm dumb, but I'm not stupid. And a grouse will get you through another day of hunting.
It will. Yeah.
And two will really get you through another day of hunting.
Boiled squirrel? Not the same lift of morale. I'll tell you right now. That's from experience.
Yeah. I've
and
had
the rib.
Yeah.
They say the rib cage on a red squirrel does not have a whole lot of meat on it.
Zero.
Well,
By the time you get done cooking it,
yeah.
Red squirrels. Oof. Anyone who thinks that, I don't know how marten live on red squirrels. It's, I mean, that's a starvation diet even for a weasel.
Yeah.
So
the other thing, it's amazing how many red squirrels sit in a tree right above you when you're trying to listen for elk coming in or listen for an elk bugle. Mm-hmm. But the second you decide you're going to live on red squirrels, there's not one to be found anywhere. The forest is silent.
Were there any remaining huckleberries to be had?
No, couldn't find a single berry. The only thing other than basically rabbit, squirrels, grouse. I'll save the fish story for people who watch the episodes. But the only thing other than that was I got lucky and found 8 shaggy mane mushrooms over a 2-day stretch, but those were the only source of carbs that we could find.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was good. We're going to launch mid-January like we always do. I think we've got 15 episodes. There will be, the elk action probably isn't going to be up to par with what it's been in the past just because of the limitations on how we could hunt and where we were hunting.
Yeah.
But I think the entertainment value is going to go way up this season.
Oh, man. I'm going to have to tune in on that one.
No. So we got back from that, and the next day, Sam's chomping at the bit. There's only a day and a half left in Idaho's archery elk season, and we went out. And, he had hunted hard while I was gone. He hunted with friends. He hunted by himself. He called in a really big 6-point by himself, and it hung up at 60 yards. Just couldn't quite seal the deal. So I got home, and he was like, I'm ready to hunt with you with a caller. And we called in a bull, got really close. He had him at 50 yards and literally was at full draw, had ranged the bull, getting ready to squeeze the trigger, and the bull just turned and walked straight away, never got a shot. So we chased the bull for probably, a third to half a mile, and he's with cows. And he went down across this draw, and we saw him come up on the other side about 400 yards away. And we had a screaming match back and forth for about 10 minutes where we just screamed bugles back and forth at each other. But he had his cows there and he had advantage and he wasn't going to come back to us and we couldn't move any closer to him. So we backed out, went clear around the knob that he was on and came up from behind and popped up from behind and could hear him raking about 100 yards down the hill. And I thought, he is in trouble because we've got in front of him now. And so I put Sam, Isaac was behind filming and Sam's up on the ridge there. And I dropped back about 15 yards behind the ridge. So the bull had to come all the way up to the ridge to see me. And I gave a couple cow calls and Sam said he just disappeared, like turned and came towards us, disappeared down under the hill. And the next thing Sam knew, he was standing on the ridge in front of him. So his head was behind a tree. Sam was able to range him, drew back and shot. And I watched the shot. I couldn't see the elk, but heard the shot and the hit. And I ran up on the ridge and the bull's still standing there looking at us. I'm like, don't move, don't move, don't move. And about then he got the wobbly rear end and fell over right there in front of us. So real nice 6x6. And I got to be there with both of my boys when they shot elk with their bows this fall. And they're strong enough to pack out most of the elk meat, which is a really great place to be as a dad.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's cool. Man. Yeah. You've had a really wonderful September, Corey.
As low key as it was, I only got to hunt, I think, 3 days for myself. Mm-hmm. But I had some great opportunities. And then we left the next day after that for our Outfitters for Hope hunt.
Yeah.
And had had a boy from Michigan that battled leukemia for 4 years that we got to spend 5 days with him and his dad. And it was probably the most challenging Outfitters for Hope hunt that we've ever done. But it always works out. That's just one of those hunts that I'm just like, I have to forget myself. I just have to remember the reason we're there, and things just work out on those hunts. And this one was no exception. The really cool part was Isaac and Sam were both there and got to share that hunt with them as well. So
cool, man. We need to do like 5 podcasts, one on each of those. We need to have we need to get Isaac and Sam on the podcast to say, all right, has your dad taught you anything? Like, shoot him slightly uphill from the road. I mean, don't get a hernia.
Yeah, there's a lot of lessons learned this season. To both of their credits, the pack outs on both elk were not difficult. Like that was, I enjoyed that. We did have, I'll save it, but we got some workout this year packing elk.
Okay, good. Well, I haven't.
So you were in Oregon?
Oregon on a pronghorn hunt. Southeast Oregon, I forgot how dusty it is down there. All that lava rock. My truck will never be the same. So, do you have a Ford, Corey?
I do.
So do I. I got this Ford Raptor. So, have you ever had the temperature indicator of the outside temperature not work or get stuck at a wrong setting?
I've not.
So mine has this thing of sometimes it'll say it's 105 degrees out. And then sometimes when it's 105, it'll say it's 33 degrees. So unknown to me, there is that temperature reading determines when your air conditioner compressor kicks in.
Ooh.
So one morning we get up and it gets chilly out there in the high desert. I think it was like 38 degrees or something like that. And it was stuck on that all day. Well, come to find out that if it gets stuck on that, when you turn on your air conditioner when it's 98 degrees, the compressor doesn't kick in. It just runs air over it or through there. Because it's thinking, well, it's so cold out. We don't want to run cold air into the cab. So we had to drive around on the hottest day with our windows open in the dustiest, rottenest, filthiest place Oregon has to offer. So right now, if you slap the seats on my pickup, you remember the cartoon character in Snoopy and Charlie Brown, Pigpen? And there's this big cloud of smelly dirt around him?
Yeah.
The amount of dust that just hangs in my cab for an hour if you just slap the seat. I guess it doesn't really matter because there's about a ½ inch of dust baked onto the dashboard, everything right now. So, yeah. If you're a Ford engineer listening to this, that's like the stupidest thing you could have ever done. I mean, how about have a real temperature indicator that works and don't tie it to this thing?
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's tied to something that's important on the vehicle, make sure it's going to work. I've never had one fail, though. Like in fact, I always brag about how accurate they are. Like, it's just, I used to have vehicles like, oh, it's 32 degrees out. And I'm like, no, it's 19 degrees out. Like, things happen at 19 degrees that don't happen at 32. And so, I've been impressed so far. But I mean, you do have a Raptor, so it's kind of a different truck than a Ford. Like, it's...
Yeah. So come to find out, when we finally get to coverage, which there's one knob in all of Southeast Oregon that has one bar of LTE, Matthew is researching this, and you have to drive 20 miles an hour or higher for 5 minutes for it to kick in.
Mm.
Well, there's not a spot there that's smooth enough. So I went and found this great big dry lake bed, and it looked like the Daytona 500 out there for 5 minutes where I'm making sure I'm going more than 20 miles an hour.
Driving in a big circle.
Yep. So, anyhow, that has
kicking up more dust.
Oh, yeah. It looked like a 4-bottom plow out there in the middle of Kansas, the amount of dust that was being kicked up there.
Well, I can relate because our Outfitters for Hope Hunt is just across the border there. In fact, we go into Oregon and then come back into Idaho in that same area. And we are out there with 4 ATVs every morning and every afternoon heading out to hunt, and a line of 4 ATVs, and that dust kicks it up. And if you're second, third, or fourth in line, you are, I mean, I took pictures of Isaac and our faces were black. The only thing you could see are these white teeth and a smile there, just caked with dust. And same. I feel your pain.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's where September started for me. And then, this whole theory about full moons.
Yeah.
I'm becoming more of a convert to your line of thinking.
Yeah. Are you talking Arizona?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst. Yeah.
So Matthew gets this tag in Arizona that a lot of people are aware of this and a few aren't, but there's some areas in Arizona where they're trying to get rid of the elk. Right? It's like, this is outside our core range. These elk are out here creating problems with the few farmers we got and our public land grazers. And we promised that we wouldn't let elk expand way the heck out here. And I think there's 4 groups of units where they have that. And so they hunt them pretty hard. Well, Matthew drew one of the tags. They're much easier to draw than what most people think in Arizona. But they're tough hunts.
Yeah.
So we go down there. It is the full moon, right? We get there on September 13th. The full moon is the 17th.
Yeah.
And we got to leave on the 21st.
Oh, so you hunted literally a bright moon every night.
Oh, yeah. Well, Arizona does not have a quote unquote shooting time. It's just anytime you can see without the aid of artificial light, you can shoot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Arizona doesn't have this half hour before or half hour after. Some days the moon was so bright, not that we did this, but I think you could have hunted at 11 at night.
Wow.
It was that bright. We got some cool footage of these moons rising, and the moon looks so big. You're like, this ain't real.
Yeah.
And the bad part is the temps. I mean, it was clear, perfect, not a cloud in the sky kind of weather. The temps were getting up in almost 90 degrees.
Wow.
So you know what that does for elk activity.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing in Arizona, the big bulls really don't fire up and start rutting until the 20th or 21st a lot of times. So you couple that with heat and a full moon, and that's a recipe for a tough hunt in a premier unit.
Yeah. So we covered so much ground, and there's so much checkerboard in some of these places. And that's where the elk like to hang out, because, this checkerboard stuff in Arizona, they must not have any rules about what a rural subdivision can look like. So you'd have a square mile, a 640 acre section, and there's 100 squatters. I don't maybe squatter's not the right term, but junked out trailer homes and Winnebagos and a shack and some sort of bomb shelter looking storage thing that they absconded off it must have fell off the railroad cars when he took a sharp corner or something. I don't know, but so that's what's out there in all these private sections. And the few bugles we heard in the dark are in these rural subdivisions. One morning, the first morning we're out there and we hear some bugling, I'm like, let's go. So we go across this piece of BLM. I'm thinking it's on this piece of BLM. No. By the time we get all the way across the BLM, we can hear them bugling, but we can hear dogs barking and doors slamming. And it's like, sorry, guys, I misjudged that one. So that was the first day. I was like, all right, at least we found some elk. We never heard another elk for 3 more days. We're out again hunting a spot that there's this canyon that goes down into this private, and it's everything an elk needs on a full moon hot period. There's this big grove of dark pinyon juniper right above this water hole, and where the water hole it's a big water source. The seepage coming out the bottom has created this lush green piece. So sneak over there right to the boundary and peek down in that canyon, and here's 3 bulls that have 20 cows there. They aren't going anywhere. When the sun finally came up and it started getting in the 70s, they just walked over to that north slope of juniper and they all laid down in there. And every once in a while, one of them would bugle. And I thought, well, there's got to be some satellites around here somewhere. So I just start whining on the cow call. And only thing I called in was a spike that had like a 35-inch spike on each side. And it's an any elk unit.
Yeah.
So I thought Matthew might toast that big spike.
That's a trophy spike. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That thing come walking right up to me. You know how dumb a spike is, right? I could see him coming for about 300 yards across the grassland. Finally, I pulled my phone out because I'm around the other side of the ridge from Matthew and Michael, the camera guy. And this goofy thing, he just keeps coming and coming. And I make a little squeak and he's like, oh boy, comes running closer. Finally, I just have my phone right up on my bino harness. And it looks like he's 3 feet away from me. He got to like 12 yards, but he stood there for the longest time. I'm like, well, now what do I do? Maybe Matthew, since we haven't heard or seen anything, maybe Matthew wants to shoot this thing. So I turn and I move my head and I look right at that bull, make eye contact with him. And he's like, whoa, what is that? And so he takes off running and he runs right over the top of Michael and Matthew. Thankfully, he did that. But Matthew wasn't going to shoot him. So what do you do when it's full moon and it's 80-some degrees and you're hunting just these little pieces of public?
Honestly, I have 18 points in Arizona right now. Mm-hmm. And I learned after my first time hunting there in 2005 that I look at the moon calendar before I ever apply for a tag there. And I look at the dates of the season because there's some years where I think the season closes on like the 19th or 20th down there, the archery season. And I've found that those big bulls, a lot of times when we hunted it the second time in 2008, we didn't see any big bulls. We didn't see any rutting action until the 20th. And then it took, I think the season ended on the 24th that year. So you only had 3 or 4 days to really hunt the actual rut. And so my whole strategy for Arizona especially is look at the calendar, make sure that the season goes until at least the 25th, and make sure there is no full moon during that time frame, because I hunted it on a full moon, and those elk, even when there's not a full moon, it's you hunt them all morning, they're screaming, there's 15 bulls bugling everywhere, and at 9 o'clock there's a light switch and they flip it and everything, it goes from 20 bulls screaming at you to silence in a matter of 30 seconds, and everything just goes quiet, and they don't bugle again until about an hour before dark that night. Midday hunting is tough down there, but when it's a full moon, you get about 15 minutes in the morning of bugling, and then it's that light switch goes off that much earlier. And so it's tough. And I've always said, you can get away with hunting a full moon in the mountain states, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. Elk still, they just aren't as affected by the full moon. You get in those desert states and man, they live by the full moon.
Yeah. And then you add, almost 90-degree midday temperatures. Yeah. It was just brutal. And so I didn't pay much attention to any of that when Matthew and I decided he'd apply for that tag. And most people think, oh, well, it's a rifle hunt in September. You're just gonna, you're gonna be run over by bulls. Well, I got news for you, folks. When people see this episode, Michael and I, the camera guy, and Matthew, we're sitting around the last day. So we're going to be able to hunt one evening and then the next morning. And then I got to get back to Montana. And so we're like, we've only got footage of one elk. And that's a spike that came in. What the heck are we? How are we going to make a story out of this? So we're out there talking about, peak rut elk, and we're talking about non-migratory elk. So we're trying to at least give the audience something that maybe it'd be worthwhile if we can make an episode out of this. So there's one water hole that isn't on private, because they'd come in and when it's that hot, they come in and water, but with the full moon, they're coming in at night. So in the evenings, we'd try to sit on that water hole. Well, when there's water on private, why are they going to come in on the one on public?
Yeah.
And so for the first couple times, that happened to be the case. They're like, we aren't coming into that public water hole. Someone sits there every night, and Fred gets shot when he comes in there. Well, the last day, we're like, what do? We haven't heard any bugles. We're just really having a struggle here. And I told Matthew, I said, you know what? With this hot temp and these full moon, the only hope we have is that we're going to catch them coming into water just before dark. And maybe we'll luck out. You know, the odds are really slim, but at least the odds aren't zero like every other thing we've tried.
Yep.
So we go back out to this water hole. Now we've got our little nest built there where we take naps and we do whatever. You know, we show up there at like 3 PM, and you just got to tough out. You know, you find some shade to sit in. And I think that day sunset was about 6:35 or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but about 6:20, I'm like, well, that's it. We got tomorrow morning. I don't know. Maybe we'll run one over in the headlights on our way back to camp or something. But and Michael and Matthew are like, "Did you hear that?" And the way they said it, it's like when my camera crew messes with me because they know I can't hear that well. And I'm like, "All right, they're going to entertain the audience by, you know, making fun of Randy's hearing." And so I look at him and I smile, and I thought, well, I better look out there where they pointed. And I look on the ridge up above us. There's a 5-point bull standing there. I'm like, oh my gosh, get ready! About 500 yards out there, there's a 5-point. So I get the all-in digiscoping all ready and set up, and I'm filming this thing. All of a sudden, out of the pinions comes a herd of elk. It looks like the Kentucky Derby. They are just on the run. It's probably 15 cows and calves. And I look through with my naked eye, I can see some antlers. I'm like, whoa, don't the one
don't
that's
shoot the 5-point.
Yeah, don't. And this bull, he's not going to let this lead cow take them to wherever they want to go. So they come into a little opening right in front of us, and this bull cuts them off. He runs out in front of them and cuts them off. And he's 75 yards away.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's looking kind of at us. And I'm like, whispering to Matthew, shoot. Well, Matthew, he's got to have a perfect shot, or he never takes it. I don't care if it's 10 yards away or 300 yards away. If it's not perfect, he's just not going to do it. Well, finally, the cows are drifting downwind of where we're set up. I'm like, they're about ready to get in our scent cone. And the bull's kind of quartering to him. So finally he did shoot. And he shot it right behind the front shoulder. But the shot angle was so steep, quartering towards us. I thought he was going to shoot it right between the right between the front legs. That's what I had done. But, well, because the sun is setting and it's so low behind us, they're looking into the sun to try to see us. Now they're just running in circles out there like me driving around the racetrack on that dry lake bed in Oregon. We got these elk running around in a circle out in front of us. And the bull stops again, and Matthew, this time he's broadside, and Matthew tips him over. That's the luckiest elk encounter of my 30-some years of elk hunting. This is like a gift. I don't know where the elk gods were that day, but they looked down on us and said, you know what? These knuckleheads, they have no clue what they're doing. We're going to throw them a bone.
That's a story of perseverance right there, that so many times odds are 100% against you. There's no prospect. you stick it out, and on the last night of the hunt, it happens. So that's why it's so important not to give up.
Yeah, but I guess that probably is the lesson of that hunt. Is some hunts are just tough, and this, I think, even in perfect conditions with this checkerboard and where the elk can go find sanctuary and all this private stuff, I think this is a tough hunt, even if it's perfect conditions. You add in full moon with 90-degree days, and we were so lucky. And all three of us are like, you know what? Let's not confuse this with skill. This was just somebody handed us a gift. And I've always said, boy, I can't wait until the time that I see an elk or we kill an elk that we can get out whole. This one died on a 2-track leading up to the water hole, like a big open area before they got to the water hole. But it's so hot. When it's pushing 90 degrees, you're not going to throw a bull elk whole in a truck.
Yeah.
So ended up having to quarter him up anyhow.
But you could have got him out whole.
We could have got him out whole. But this guy was so caked with mud. You know how you see these hippos and rhinos that have like 3 inches of mud on them? If you would have shot this thing with an arrow, I don't know if the arrow could have penetrated that dried mud on him. He was
got a coat of armor.
Oh gosh, it was crazy how thick of a coat of armor he had of mud. So,
and if you've never had to skin an elk after it's been in a wallow, that is a treat all in itself. Trying to keep dirt off of the meat.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can try, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave as much fat, as much whatever on this, and I'm going to let that dirt get on there and just dry there. And then when I get him home to process him, I'll just take that layer of fat off. Yeah, the dirt will come with it. So, yeah, that was. Don't ask me how we got that lucky. I'll never apply for that tag.
Well, and I saw a picture. I saw a picture. It was, like you said, he had probably shot the spike on that last day, and that 5-point was looking like a really good trophy. And then the bull that you shot, it was a good bull.
It was a whopper.
Yeah,
I'm not into scores and stuff, but the main beams were over 50 inches long, and the inside spread is 51 inches.
Wow.
It's like, this thing doesn't look real. This looks like some sort of manufactured thing. And so to have a bull like that end up being the only bull we really had a chance at in 5.5 days of hunting that's when you just have to accept that sometimes you get lucky. So all the next trips or future trips or past trips where I thought we really deserved something and we didn't get it, this made up for it.
Finally made up for it. So you're back starting over. It's like when you spend all your points in a state, you start back over at 0. You just spent all your points.
Yeah, it's funny. On the way home, all three of us were talking about, would we ever apply for that tag again? And it was unanimous that no, we're never going to get this lucky ever again. Never. Yeah. So let's not push the issue. That'll be an interesting one to see if people think about that. But so then I came home to Montana, and I'm like, all right, I got 2 of the Mountain Tough guys. I got Dustin and Nate. They want to come with me. I'm like, all right, we're going into this one area that if we shoot one down there, I would never shoot one there myself. But if I got these 2 guys, I'll shoot one down there.
Yeah.
Well, what do I always preach in all of my content is don't hunt sanctuaries for the sake of sanctuaries, right? This time of year, go where the best feed is. That's where the cows are going to be. But I just had it in my head that there had to be some bulls in there in September, and we're coming off the full moon, and the temps are dropping down into this, at night, getting down to 40, and the forecast was supposed to be over 65 degrees during the day. I'm like, whew, this is like as good as it gets. Well, when you go do that, and down in the valley, there are a couple, like 3 or 4 miles away, there's an alfalfa pivot. Those cows aren't coming up to this sanctuary.
Yeah.
And if those cows don't come up to this sanctuary area, neither are the bulls.
Yeah.
So I wish I could tell you that I had something to show for that, other than just some boot leather.
Man, having those guys with you is like having a string of llamas. You almost want to shoot something just so they can pack for you.
I know. Well, I've shot some bulls in here in rifle season, which is, late
Sanctuary
season.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just convinced, what, there's gotta be some elk in there in September. It's just too good a spot. Nope. So moral of that story is do what I say.
Don't second guess what's working.
Yeah. So anyhow, I feel like a nodhead on that one, Corey. It's been an interesting September. If you would have told me it was going to turn out the way it did for us, I'd be like, nah. I would have thought we went to Arizona, we'd be covered up with elk. That was stupid. But so I leave in a couple days to go help a friend in Idaho. We do those win a hunt with Randy things with the Elk Foundation.
Yeah.
And we've done 6 of them. And they raise a lot more money than I could ever write a check for. So we're happy to do them. But we got this winner from 2021. So we applied him for special tags in 22 and 23 and 24, and he never drew anywhere in all the states we applied him for. So he's like, you know what? I just want to go elk hunting. So I'm an Idaho resident. I'm going to just buy a general tag and let's go. Like, all right. If that's what you want to do, I'm all in on that. I got llamas. Let's do it. So when you're out there looking for that big bull on the 15th, we've got a GPS tracker on you, so we know exactly where you were.
That's great.
So if you see us out there, if you shoot them, whistle us down because we'll have llamas to help you.
The beauty of Idaho, well, it's not the beauty. It kind of ruined it, but you have to pick a zone. I'm guessing you aren't going to be in the same zone as me. So
no, I'm guessing we're not.
We're actually, Sam and I are heading out tomorrow, and we're going in about 9 miles on motorcycles to scout an area. And the scouting is twofold. A, to see if the elk are still bugling there, because back in as deep as we're going, they'd better be bugling. If there's no bugles, there's no elk. Yeah. And B, as hot and as dry as it's been, I don't know if there's going to be any water there for a camp. Yeah. So we're going in. I've got 2 hikes. We're going to do one Friday afternoon and then one Saturday morning to look for elk and look for water. And if we can't find either, then my backup plan is to go hunt this bull that I found yesterday. But if we can go and find elk, it's one of those places where you just go in there and in your mind, there has to be a big bull because nobody else is going to go in there. Yeah. And so that's kind of what we're planning on. Baku is, they're coming out with some electric dirt bikes, which I've been testing for the last 2.5 years. And the production one is supposed to show up tomorrow. And they're going to try to get me one to ride in there. And so we're taking 2 electric motorcycles in. So I just, I love hunting on electric motorcycles because they're absolutely silent. Yeah. So you can pull up to a point on it and bugle and not feel like you're scaring the elk away. If you're on a motorized one or a ATV or something, you have to wait 5 or 10 minutes and hike down the ridge a couple hundred yards. And these electric motorcycles, and it's a full dirt bike, regular suspension. It's just like riding a dirt bike, only it doesn't make any noise. The one I've been riding gets about 35 or 40 miles on a charge. Yeah. This new one that's coming in is supposed to get 70 to 80 miles on a charge. So,
whoa.
Yeah. Wow. So that's why we planned the motorcycle hunt was around that. And, but if it doesn't work out and we can't find any elk, I've got a pretty good backup. The problem with the backup is it's on state ground that's been logged and it borders private on one side, and the elk are coming off of the private and feeding in the logging area. Yeah. And so I know there's going to be people there. I think I've got a little bit of a leg up knowing, where he's at right now and having hunted him 4 different times in September. But you really have opening morning. And if that doesn't work out, then he's probably going to his sanctuary, which is private land.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, planning this hunt with this guy, our sweepstakes winner in Idaho. I'm surprised to see how many areas on the Forest Service in Idaho are open to motorcycles, but not side-by-sides.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. In Montana, just about all of our stuff is either full motorized or no motorized. So if you want to go side-by-side, motorcycle, whatever, or you just can't do anything. So it's been an interesting thing. And when you're talking about looking for water, the waypoint we're going into with the llamas, I don't know for sure if there's water in there. That's why we're leaving a couple days early, because we're going to trailer the llamas to the trailhead, hike in a long ways. And if there's no water, I got to come back to a different spot where I know there's water. Because here's always my theory. Everyone's like, well, Randy, that's that area you're talking about. There's a lot of guys who hunt that with horseback. I'm like, okay. The one thing I've found with the horseback guys is they need a lot of water for horses. And llamas, they're a camelid, so you don't need as much water. And if I fill them up real good before we leave, they can make it 2 or 3 days without water, but I'd like to have a spot where I could water them.
And they don't need, like you said, they don't need much. The time we took them in, it was so frustrating. We took a 5-gallon bucket with us, and we had a creek right there. We'd fill that up and take it over to them. They'd kick it over.
Yep.
And we'd leave it there overnight and come back the next morning. They hadn't drank a drop of it. It was like, this is, horses, you have to stay on top of getting them water. The llamas are like, I'm not thirsty. I'm kicking that water bucket over and making you pack another one tomorrow.
Yeah. So that's part of our strategy, is to think that this is a way maybe we could separate a little distance between us and the horse guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. I'm hoping that there's bulls bugling. This our sweepstakes winner. He's like, look, I've never shot a bull elk. I'm shooting the first bull. I don't care a spike, Boone and Crockett, or something in between. I'm shooting it. So I'm like, cool. I'm on board with that. So that's what I'm doing. And then when I get done with that, I come back to Montana, and I'm gonna just go sit my sorry butt in that sanctuary area until some elk finally fill into there. My wife will have my mail forwarded to that spot. Like, are you ever coming home? Nope, not till the elk show up here.
When does rifle open in Montana this year?
October 26th.
It's as late as it can be, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Runs until December 1st. And by opener, the bigger bulls will have left the cow groups.
Yeah.
There's going to be a few younger bulls that are still with the cows at that time. But the bigger bulls, and this is why it's so hard, because when they leave those cow groups for that first 10 days to 2 weeks, they're just solo. They're not in bachelor groups. They're not really
only that, but they aren't wandering either. They're just laying there resting. So they'll get up and walk 30 yards to water and feed along the way, and then go right back and lay down. So it's hard to find them.
Yeah. So I know a couple spots in there where there's some little beaver ponds, and I'm hoping that maybe they'll be in there. But the other part about Montana, kind of like Idaho, opening day, it's justifiably called the pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
And as much as some of these bulls at that time want to just be left alone, there's hunters walking around everywhere. So they're going to stumble into a few of these bulls and get too close to them and push these bulls around. And maybe you luck out then and get a glimpse of one or a shot at one. But it's tough. That first couple days, that everyone, and that's the other thing in Montana, even though we have a 5-week rifle season, everyone wants to get it out of their system the first weekend or the first week. And that's why in Montana, I usually go hunt. I'll usually go opening weekend, but I usually will put my most focused effort later on in the season.
Yeah. And that's like in Idaho, you want to be out opening day because October 15th, there's a good chance you're going to get into some bugling still. And it doesn't take very long for a bunch of rifles going off for them to just shut off the rut. It's like a light switch, like, okay, we're done. We're out of here.
Yeah.
But, you get in Montana, October 26th, they're pretty much done rutting anyway. Yeah. And so that's a tough hunt. I think, like you said, going later for bigger bulls like that, when they're bachelored up, when they're back into a feeding pattern, when the weather might have them a little more concentrated or at least thinking about migrating and moving down can be a little bit easier.
Yeah, if you gave me a perfect day, it would be sometime in the last half of November. We just got a huge snow, and when it clears, it gets down to 10 below zero. I know those bulls, they bedded down and sat out the storm. Now it's cold. They're going to be out later in the morning, and they're going to be coming out earlier in the afternoon.
Yeah, and they're going to be feeding on the open hillsides.
So if I got that's like the perfect condition compared to a full moon with 90 degrees.
Polar opposite.
Before I do my Arizona or New Mexico applications next year, Corey, I'm calling you to remind me. Randy, I'm not jerking your chain. Remember, there is some validity to this full moon thing that you always have been a science denier on.
Well, and you and I hunted New Mexico several years ago on a full moon. Yeah, and it was hot. And I mean, the action was just non-existent.
Yeah. So, you'd think after 30 some years, I'd pay attention to my own notes and my own journals. I don't know, I just got excited. And when Matthew said, I want to apply for that one, I'm like, yeah, let's go. We lucked out. That's all I can say.
That's great.
Don't confuse that with skill. That was pure luck. So, so it's been a great season. I've seen some really big bulls getting killed this year. We must have had a great moisture year in Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming. The antler growth I've seen this year has been tremendous.
I just don't think we're as susceptible to drought conditions for antler growth. You get into Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, Nevada, they definitely are. I just think that we have enough natural moisture in the mountain states that the feed doesn't really get compromised during that growing time. By the time they get into August and things get really dry, they have to start getting creative to get the best feed. But during that May, June, July timeframe, even on hot, dry years, there's still enough natural moisture that they can find lush feed in the creek bottoms and stuff that those desert states just don't have.
Yeah. Have you seen those big fires in Wyoming right now?
Whew. No, I can't see through the smoke from our own fires.
Oh, really? You guys, we're kind of lucky in Montana. We don't have fires. We're just smoke infested right now because of fires. Maybe it's from you guys to the west of us, but I see Wyoming announce that they're returning or they're canceling or closing the seasons in some of these areas.
Wow, what part of the state?
Kind of like in the Bighorns and then over south and west of Cody, between Cody and DuBois and areas over there. Not exactly sure all the units, but it's got me thinking. They're telling the people we're going to roll your tag to next year.
Oh.
So next year, does that mean they're not going to even have a draw for those units because they rolled everybody forward? Or are you going to have twice as many hunters in those units next year? I don't know.
Well, if I know Wyoming's philosophy well enough here after seeing them raise prices to over $2,000 for a special tag, my guess is they're going to have a draw next year and they're going to sell tags and we're just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's really, really brutal in some of those places, which this time I see that in late August, maybe early September, but we're a month past all that.
We had 7 fires within, I think, 12 miles of our house this summer. And 3 of them were big, like went from 1,500 acres to 40,000 overnight to 80,000 the next night, where they evacuated, several people. it was super smoky. And then we got the rain mid-September sometime. I don't remember when it was, 14th, 15th, somewhere in there. And got good rain for 2 or 3 days. And everybody's like, fires are out. Everything's good. They sent all the firefighters home. And rather than being wise about it and saying, hey, let's take one more dump load of water and just dump it on those hot spots, they just left them. And it got hot again, and they flared up a week or two ago, and now we've got major fires going again because they just didn't put them out, which there's two sides, but when you're talking about rural residential places where there are houses that can be affected, you shouldn't be evacuating for a third time. Like when you've had rain to help you, put it out and be done with it. And they didn't. And so we're dealing with it. There's one right out of Boise now that's really close to town. So we've got a lot of fires here, and it, like you said, it's pretty rare. Usually by now we've at least had a couple good rainstorms and maybe a snowstorm, and we were 80 some degrees here in the mountains yesterday.
It's insane how hot it's been here in Montana. I would swear it's August, not October. And you look at the long-term forecast, they're like, oh, the Northern Rockies is in for a brutal winter and da-da-da, and maybe we are. But you wouldn't know it by what's going on right now. I might be out there down in Idaho walking llamas with flip-flops and cutoffs or something.
That's a picture none of us need in our minds.
Oh, yeah, probably not. The llamas would take off running. Like, we don't want to be seen with this guy.
Put sunglasses on the llamas.
No one's ever gonna. The only good purpose for my white legs is if you needed to signal help to an overflying aircraft or something. But it's
I've got a couple more stories.
Oh, cool.
They're predator related.
Oh, really? Like human predator or natural predator?
Four-legged.
Okay.
Yeah. So Isaac and I are out one night, and it's during the rain. We just got done talking about the rain, but we drove to an area, hiked back in, couldn't get a bugle. And I said, let's just drive. It's raining, drizzling off and on. Let's just drive around and see what the hunting pressure's like, see where camps are. And then when the rain quits, we'll come back in a couple days. And so we made this big loop, and we're coming down the mountain, and I got out and stood there and let out a bugle, and right down below us, a moose starts grunting, which we have so few moose in this area anymore. The wolves have just absolutely decimated the moose population. And so to hear a moose grunt, I haven't heard a moose grunt in September for a long time. So it's kind of cool. We're talking about that. And then over the backside of the ridge, quite a ways down the road, I just hear the top end of a bugle. And I thought, I couldn't even tell if that was human or elk. So we're looking on the map, and I thought, there's no road down in there in a rainstorm. I doubt there's going to be a person down there. So I said, let's just drive down to the next corner, hike out on the overlook there, and just listen. So we get down on the next corner, and we hike. I probably hiked 40 yards from the truck, and we're standing there listening, and nothing. And after about 5 minutes, I let out a little location bugle, and we stand there and nothing. And after about another minute, it just starts downpouring. So I said, let's just run back to the truck and wait till it quits, and we'll come back and listen some more. So we run to the truck 40 yards or so, jump in the truck, and we're sitting there for probably 3 or 4 minutes, and it's just downpouring. And a side-by-side goes by. And I thought, you see a side-by-side after you hear a bugle, and you think maybe it was them. And I thought, no, they're coming from the wrong direction. It wouldn't have been them. So they go by, and about 30 seconds later, the rain lets up. And so I get out, and I walk 40 yards back up to the point we'd been standing on. And I get there and turn around and look. There's a mountain lion 30 yards from me just standing there. Whoa. On the hillside, 10 yards off of the road. Now, keep in mind, we drove there. We got out and let out a bugle. Then it started downpouring, so we get in the truck. Then a side-by-side drives by. 30 seconds later, I get out and walk up there. It's a big mountain lion. Like, it's a mature tom standing there just looking at me. So Isaac's 30 yards away from me, just leaving the truck, and I turn, I'm like, get your bow. I mean, I whispered it out to him. Yeah. And he didn't even hesitate. He ran to the truck, flung open the door, grabbed his bow, and came hustling up there. Well, he got about 10 yards from me, and the the cougar jumped over the cut bank there into the road where we couldn't see it anymore and ran up around the corner. Like there was a mountain lion right there. So he takes off running up the road, and he gets 40 yards up the road. And so I just start doing a whole bunch of lost calf cries. That cougar came to the bugle, one location bugle. It came in looking for that.
Wow.
And so I did a bunch of lost calf cries, and Isaac's about 40, 50 yards away from me up the road. And all of a sudden I see him freeze up, and he puts an arrow. Well, I already had an arrow on, lifts the bow up, comes to full draw. And I hear the shot, and then he turns and starts running towards me. And so I go up there. I'm like, what? And he's like, that thing circled around and was laying 15 yards from me in the ceanothus there, just looking back down at me. And he's like, all I could see was its head sticking out there. So I just aimed for, like its throat right at the frontal there. And we got looking. He didn't hit it. There's no blood or anything. Yeah. And it's just a massive brush that he shot through. So I think he ended up hitting the brush. And it was 12, 15 yards. I can imagine he probably put his 20-yard pin on it, and not knowing where the arrow actually entered the brush, it most likely deflected. But I mean, he was kicking himself for days after that. You just don't get those opportunities very often. But I have 3 different mountain lions on my trail cameras that I have set out this year.
Really?
In different locations. And then 2 different packs of wolves. So I've followed this same pack of wolves. There were 2 gray ones and then 1 black one. And they did not hang out together for the last 4 years.
Okay.
And then last year, now there's 3 gray ones and a black one in the same area that are all teamed up together. So a pack of 4. So I've just been kind of, in my mind, there's a pack of 4. And they never had pups over that 4 or 5 year period. There were never any pups. It was just those same 4 adults. Yeah. And I got a trail camera video of them this year coming through. And it's the same 3 gray ones and a black one. I thought, it's them. And then they keep coming. And they keep coming. Whoa. And I know there's at least 6. I have 6 of them on the same video coming through. There's 2 black ones and 4 gray ones. But I have them on 5 different trail cameras, the same pack. They are covering country and killing elk. I've got one from just 4 days ago of a bull elk coming through. And 10 minutes later, there's 2 wolves, and then another 4 minutes later, there's 2 more wolves that come through on his trail following that bull elk 10 minutes after he walked through. So it's almost time to get serious. Almost time to get serious about hunting wolves.
Yeah. Yeah. If you are coming to Montana or Idaho elk hunting this year, please buy a couple wolf tags.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are. I just bought mine here in Montana. They're really
cheap for us as residents. And non-residents, I don't think they're a whole lot more. No. And the other thing is, I don't think I could ever do it, but I think there's a lot of non-residents that it would make sense to do it. But if you have an elk or a deer tag, you can put that on a wolf in Idaho.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know
so
that.
You can, if you see a wolf incidentally and shoot it, your elk or deer tag are good for that wolf.
Huh. Well, I don't think that's the case in Montana, and even if it was, that's going to be an $1,100 wolf tag.
Exactly.
Just buy the $30 version and have it in your pocket.
Yep.
Hearing you say that gets me to thinking about the upcoming election and what's on the ballot in Colorado. And I know we've talked about it. All of our platforms, we've been talking about it and promoting it, but I think it's called Initiative 127 down there, I think is the new number that it has. I shouldn't say that without knowing, but folks, it's supposedly focused just on mountain lions, lynx, and bobcats. Well, and they're calling it trophy hunting. My understanding is that the way the language is written, it expands far beyond those 3. And brings some new definitions into the picture. Yep. It does a lot of things wrong. It takes wildlife management out of the hands of scientists and biologists and gives it to the voter, whether they're informed or uninformed. Most would say they're certainly not trained scientists and biologists. But the history of 4 years ago, when Colorado had a ballot initiative on wolves, so many people who would have been inclined, mostly rural folks, did not vote. If you live in Colorado and you don't vote, please don't listen to our podcast. Just go do something else. Because that ballot initiative on wolves, if you do the kind of like the hindsight autopsy,
it would have been easily defeated.
Yes. If so, all of you who are listening, you probably have a friend or friends or family who just are like, it doesn't matter. It matters. Make sure they're registered to vote. And if you have to, drive them down to the polling station that day.
Yep. Because become an Uber for the voting.
Yes. That I can accept if everybody inclined to vote favorably in the way that we're promoting this. If they all voted and you still lost, you know what? Well, got to come up with a better message or something.
Yep.
But there's just no excuse for getting your butt handed to you. And it even isn't a butt handing. It was, like to miss it just like by such a small portion.
Yeah.
Just because people didn't vote.
Well, and I just, and especially in places that have been historically more conservative, a lot of people have gotten the mindset that my vote doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything. Like, I don't even need to vote. Anymore, though, every vote matters. And that Wolf Initiative couldn't have made it any clearer. It was, so within reach. Yep. You could have went to one town and polled hunters there who didn't vote for it, and that would have made the difference in that, let alone statewide. So this is, you mentioned it's Colorado Proposition 127, and it's the Prohibit Hunting of Mountain Lion, Bobcat, and Lynx initiative. So a yes vote supports defining and prohibiting trophy hunting as intentionally killing, wounding, pursuing, or entrapping a mountain lion, bobcat, or lynx, or discharging or releasing any deadly weapon at a mountain lion, bobcat, or lynx. A no vote opposes that definition and the prohibiting of hunting mountain lion, bobcat, or lynx. So you want to vote no on that one.
Yes, please. And if you're a non-resident, I hope you'll do what a lot of us have done. If you apply in Colorado, take some of that application money and send it in to those groups that are fighting this. Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management has set up a big place where at this point, it's all about media buy. They need the money to buy the airtime, buy the billboards, buy the space in newspapers to compete with these ridiculous amount of out-of-state dollars that are coming from the other side. The messaging's done. The campaign is in full progress. They're working their butts off. They just need more money. So if you got $10, $50, $100, send it to them, because between now and November 5th, they have to reach as many people as possible.
Yeah,
that's really what it's boiling down to at this point. And
totally. No, and we're in a new era here. There's, you and I have been talking about a lot of things for a lot of years, but we're really on an election year this year, especially. We've seen it, the Wolf Initiative in Colorado. We've seen some things in Idaho, Montana, where science and biology are not backing hunting and wildlife management.
Right.
And it's going to get out of hand. So we have to just team up. And that's one of the things we've talked about for a long time is we have to get more voices. That's part of what you and I do is we encourage people to hunt. We encourage people to join us. And we take some heat for that because we're supposedly ruining hunting by putting more people in the field. Well, this is the time when it's time to put the money where the mouth is. We have to get those voices together, because if we don't, we will lose even more opportunity than you can imagine. So Colorado's the big one right now. We've got it. This one has to be stopped. And if it's not, it's just going to set a bigger precedence that these groups that are trying to get this passed are going to start attacking other states where they see weaknesses. And it's not going to be long before opportunities lost, more people are focused into one state, and that opportunity is going to be taken. So it's time to stand up and do something. Obviously, Colorado's the one that's on the page right now.
It's ground zero right now. So those of you who say, well, what can I do? I don't live in Colorado. Well, if you know any people in Colorado, make sure they know to vote and educate them on this issue. You want a no vote. Send some money if you can and get the word out. And we better brace ourselves. If we're so apathetic that we don't show up for this in Colorado, man, like you said, Corey, the dominoes are going to start falling in a lot of other places.
Yeah.
The idea of the North American model of wildlife management and wildlife conservation has nothing in it about managing at the ballot box. It's all about management based on science. And this is these efforts are a complete rejection of that. A complete, we don't care that this model for the last 140 years has recovered wildlife to the point nobody could have ever imagined. For them, it's all about, hey, we want the world to have to live the way we live.
Yep.
So
they're trying, and that doesn't just stop at hunting. Obviously, hunting's something we're passionate about, but that model of change the world so it's exactly like we want it to be, we can't let that happen. There's way too much at stake here, and like you said, just the whole management of wildlife. It's been an absolute success story the last 100 years, 120 years. Yeah. You can't deny that. Even these people that don't agree with hunting can't deny looking at the numbers. Yes, without that in place, hunting almost wiped out a lot of species. Now there are regulations in place not to keep hunters from wiping out species, but to allow hunters to help conserve those species and make sure that there are things in place. You can't look at it and say, at any time in the last 120 or 140 years, regulations haven't improved the wildlife, the numbers of them, the health of them, the science that's gone into, the money that it takes to manage them, to monitor them, to study them. That's all come from hunting. And without hunting, all of that goes away and these animals are left to their own. And it's not going to work anymore. You can't say let nature manage nature. It's not the same nature that it was. We have a responsibility to be stewards of the land and of the wildlife, and that includes managing them, and hunting is absolutely the most effective way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, we have California to look at for the example, right? They got rid of lion hunting, I can't remember when. Yeah. But now their state agency removes more problem lions than were being shot by hunters back before they changed the law.
Spending money to remove them rather than gaining revenue from hunting.
And we can all get frustrated about that, right? And I get frustrated about it, but frustration without action and effort, it just results in more frustration. So, and
I really think with the efforts that are being made by organizations in Colorado and other organizations supporting Colorado, I really think this will be defeated, but it's not going to be because we let somebody else do it. Residents of Colorado have to go out and defeat this. And every single year, 18-year-old child who's never voted before, you make sure they're registered and you make sure they show up. Your friends, your cousins, everything, you've got to be saying, hey, this is important. I know you like to go and hunt deer and elk every year in October. This is next. We've got to stop this or we're going to lose that opportunity. So get down and vote.
Yep. And if you want to stay up to date on a lot of this stuff, our friends out at Howl, Howl, do an amazing job of keeping people updated on this.
Yep.
So go out there, sign up to be on their their email list. The Elk Foundation, they've put a ton of money into this. And they've been keeping people updated. Make sure you and your friends are engaged or informed or stay informed by being on one of these email lists. I know we all get so darn many emails where like the last thing I want to do is give somebody my email. But you can filter that stuff. When you get a spam one, call it spam, and then you won't have to look at it again in the future. But for these groups that are working hard to keep us informed, you're going to do yourself and all of us favors if we support them and we get on their email list. So
yep, it's howlforwildlife.org. All those words spelled out, howlforwildlife.org.
Yeah. Those guys are doing a great job on this and other issues. But now,
not just Colorado.
Yeah, it's pretty much all hands on deck in Colorado right now. But we got to go hunting, Corey.
Yeah, I got one more thing. A while back, I'd mentioned there was a House bill in Idaho that was getting rid of the December 1st debacle for non-residents. Mm-hmm. That got shut down. So I think I misspoke and said it actually passed. It did not pass. It got shut down. So the process is still the same. The online debacle, you can show up in person and purchase. There's the limited quota for non-residents in Idaho for deer and elk. It's been December 1st when that happens. This year, December 1st is on a Sunday, and it's also Thanksgiving weekend. So they're postponing it till December 10th, 2024, if you are interested in getting your deer and elk tags for 2025. So December 10th is the date. And that also, December 1st is when auto renewals, I believe, start and when residents can purchase their license for the next year. And so in the past, there's been a lot of residents trying to get licenses and the auto renewal is bogging down the system. So I think by moving it to December 10th, they think it's going to hopefully clear up some of those issues, but still going to be issues. It's still the same process. It's still, you get put into a waiting room where you're assigned a random number, and then based on that random number is when you get your chance to go and see if there's a tag left that you want to purchase. So while it is, over the counter, first come, first serve, it's really a lottery based on your waiting room number that you're randomly assigned.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even get in that process last year. It's like, you know what? If folks want to go through that, I hope one of you get a tag and go hunting. I know that's kind of like bailing out, but I look at it and I get why Idaho does it that way, and it definitely shows how much demand there is for Idaho. But I'll just wait, and some year I'll draw a controlled permit in Idaho. I don't know when, but the optimist in me keeps saying, I've done this for whatever, I think it would be now 26 or 27 years in Idaho. Somehow, some way, I'm going to draw a tag there someday. I don't know when, but someday.
Someday. Well, if you quit putting in for all the hard ones.
I look at what are the easiest ones. I mean, I've done some where when the results came out, I had a 50-50 chance. And I was in the wrong 50%, but oh well.
I've been the same. Like there's antelope. When antelope used to be over the counter, and then it went to a controlled draw, and it was like 40-50% draw odds. I think I put in for the first 4 or 5 years and didn't draw a tag, and I just quit putting in. But I actually I have an old antelope blind that had broken poles. And when I had hernia surgery, I couldn't do a whole lot. And I was out cleaning my shed and thought, I'm going to fix that. So I pulled it out and I fixed my antelope blind. So now it's got me thinking I might have to hunt antelope next year.
You should go do that.
Yeah.
You should.
I think I might.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we finally got to catch up, Corey. I thought maybe you just ran off and joined the circus or something. I was going to call Jennifer. Hey, have you seen Corey in the last month or two?
You couldn't come up with anything better than the circus for me to have joined? Well, like that's the first thing that came to mind. If I ran off, I'd join the circus.
Okay, I'm aging myself, right? When I was a kid, there was this movie called Toby Tyler Joins a Circus, and he runs away from home. So Grandma would always say, "Why don't you just run off and join the circus?" So that kind of became code word for someone's been absent for
missing
a while.
in action. Yeah.
Sorry.
I know. I would have hoped you'd have said, ran off and joined the Red Cross or some productive charitable organization.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reality is I probably would fit in best in the circus anyway. So,
rumor has it that pretty soon Outdoor Class is going to release our cow elk course.
I just reviewed it this morning.
I reviewed it yesterday. Do you know when they're going to launch it?
They said as soon as we get done reviewing it. So maybe by the time this podcast comes out, it's available.
Yeah. So if you want a new cow elk course that's on top of all the other courses out there from me and Corey and Remy and Hank and John and Jamie and the list goes on and on. Elk Talk will save you some money when you go out there. I think it saves you 30% if you go to outdoorclass.com. But we've just had so much demand. People are like, I want information about hunting cow elk.
Yeah. So. And I don't know if Elk Talk doesn't work, try Elk Talk 30. I know they had to make some changes.
Oh, that's right.
To some, and I don't know if Elk Talk might still work, but if you type in Elk Talk and it says it's no longer valid or something, try Elk Talk 30.
Yeah, that's right. So, but I read that. I watched all those yesterday, and I'm like, some of this actually makes sense.
Well, I watched part of yours, and I thought they made Randy look good here.
Well, that is a project in itself. But so that's coming out, and hopefully next time we get together. One, it's not going to be so long because I'm going to send you an email after this and get us locked in on another date. But then we can go through the volumes and volumes of emails we've got. The number of what if scenarios or what should I have done differently? Holy cow! There are a lot of emails there, and sorry we haven't got a chance to get to them, folks, but. It's going to give us an awful lot of information and resource to draw on once we get through storytelling about the season and the hunts we have had. So,
yep.
But
one more thing.
No, I'm going to save this for the next one.
Oh,
but my 100-page elk hunting e-guide is about ready to be published.
Oh.
So, yeah,
I know that has been a huge work in progress for a while for you, so that's exciting.
Yeah, that's 2 years of work. But thanks for doing the archery chapter and part of the gear chapter for me, because we actually want it to be super helpful. And if I would have done the archery part, it probably wouldn't have met that threshold. So I appreciate you doing that. So
Absolutely.
On the next podcast, I'll tell people where it's at and where they can get it. We're trying to make it so that certain people get them for free just because, Outdoor Class and Fresh Tracks Plus and other stuff. So we got to get that sorted out. But we're there. We're ready to go, other than finalizing the mechanism to let you download it and get your free copy or to buy a copy. So
there you go.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, congratulations on getting that finished up. I'm excited to hear about where we can find it.
Yeah. So, I was about ready to say something about where you could find it, but I got an email this morning from Matthew saying, hey, we're still working some bugs out on this, kind of keep it on the down low for right now. So, all right. He's the technology guy. I'm just the guy with the big mouth. So I'm the guy who just turns the item off and on if it's not working. I hit the power button. That's got to fix it.
Turn it off. And we saw that here when we were trying to get Randy couldn't get his microphone working. So folks, here is the process to fix it. Randy whistles into it, unplugs it, and plugs it back in, and it works. So if all else fails, just whistle and reboot.
Yeah. So it worked though, didn't it? You watched me.
I did.
So it says that. So here we go. Right. While we're doing this, I'm trying to do something on my phone to look at what I was gonna try to get us on another committed date here, and I hit the wrong button and I made an emergency call. I hit the asterisk and it's like, are you sure you want to make this emergency call?
Man.
Corey, I should not be allowed to have technology.
And not multitask. Stay focused here.
No. So we better let people go before I call 911 or something. Then the fire department shows up ready to put a fire out at my building or something. But well. Yeah. And next episode, I'll do a little confession for you about my grouse hunting this year.
All right, and I will hopefully have a really cool elk hunting story for rifle season to tell.
You got everybody. The suspense level is pretty high, Corey. The way you've been building that one up, so I hope you get them.
I do too.
I hope you do. Well, have fun out there. Be safe and shoot that great big one.
Sounds good, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, folks.